While well remembered for many reasons, it's Half-Life 2's atmospheres and ambiences that never fail to stop me in my tracks. Highway 17 and the beginning of Sandtraps are, at least in my opinion, the high point of Half-Life 2's atmosphere, and they're also my favorite section of the game. It's a seaside road trip dotted by remnants of a world upended by invasion and war. Brief action set pieces are separated by small encounters with enemies in and around abandoned buildings and other points of interest. Each stop is a vignette, micro stories told with environmental details and Half-Life 2's physics. For reasons unknown, the sea level has significantly receded, leaving behind beached boats and other ocean debris. It's a melancholic space to drive through, especially when paired with the sounds of distant ocean waves and ocean breezes. If you were to scatter a few diary pages and add a bit more detail here and there, you'd have a level straight out of a Naughty Dog game. In fact, it really wouldn't surprise me to learn that this section provided inspiration for similar scenes from games that came after. This section also acts as a bit of a wind down. Ravenholm, which precedes it, is more claustrophobic and horror-centric, and doesn't provide much of a pause between all its zombies and headcrabs. There's still plenty of tension, creepiness, and action here, but the highway's open roads give you time to breathe and hopefully get your heart rate back down to normal. At least, close to normal. Highway 17 begins with an urgent tone. After making contact with the Resistance, Gordon learns that the Combine captured Eli and transported him to Nova Prospect. You'll have to drive Gordon up the coast, meet a group of rebels at Lighthouse Point, and spearhead Eli's rescue. For the drive, we are introduced to Half-Life 2's second vehicle, the buggy. And after a crane malfunction, we get introduced to a new type of enemy, giant bugs. Antlions are fast and can fly, but they don't take too many hits to kill. It's a frenetic and welcomed addition to Half-Life 2's combat, which up to this point has already been great. Once you flip the buggy over with a shot from the gravity gun, it's time to drive. This starting area allows you to acclimate yourself to the buggy and its equipped cannon, perfect for zapping antlions on the go and keeping things active as you drive around. Heading up the coast, we reach our first stop, a rundown house guarded by a Combine restrictor. It's our first encounter with a restrictor, but once you see antlions scurrying around the perimeter, its job becomes self-explanatory. Inside the house is a poison headcrab, the scariest enemy in the history of video games. You can also hear the host zombies' labored breathing in a room above you. At the center of the basement, a drop pod says everything you need to know about what happened here. It's unsettling, but a box of grenades and the house's open floor plan make for fun and somewhat relieving grenade tossing. Once you've killed the poison zombie and the explosions and zombie screams subside, the level's amazing ambience really takes hold. The restrictor's hypnotic beats in the distance merge with the sound of sloshing waves. It's an eerie soundscape that'll stay with us almost for the entirety of both chapters. Our next stop is another house, again protected by a restrictor. This house is eerie too, but as you walk up, Combine radio chatter betrays the soldiers inside. Looking through the door, the soldier using binoculars is an easy target, but he's also bait. Behind him, a soldier with a shotgun stands in a tucked-away side room, and outside another soldier stands guard. Attack the lookout, and you'll probably take a few hits from the other soldiers. Alternatively, you can go around the house to the left, where the guard will spot you from around the corner, or maybe you sneak underneath the house and toss a few surprise grenades. Whatever your choice, Valve adds flavor to what is a largely inconsequential fight through a few routes of attack and a couple hidden soldiers, a theme that is repeated throughout Half-Life 2. If you take a look through those binos, you get a peek at the next big stop and an appearance of G-Man, a small reminder of the intriguing, if somewhat contrived, mysteries that underlie Half-Life. Up ahead, a few more Combine are fighting antlions around a boathouse. Your buggy's cannon makes quick work of them, and inside you'll find some health and ammo. The boat is a fun piece of physics. You can hit it with the gravity gun and watch the ropes bounce and swing it around. If you're really curious, you can hop inside and test the strength of the ropes. While initially appearing secure, the ropes snap snap after a few seconds and you drop down to the beach, forced to shoot your way back to the restrictor. It's a cheeky surprise and another fun detail in a game chock full of them. Following the boathouse is Highway 17's first big set piece, New Little Odessa. The rebels at NLO expect a Combine attack at any moment, and you'll need to help them fight it off. Here, Half-Life 2 hands us the laser-guided RPG, acquired from the hands of the definitely very brave Colonel Cubbage. After you pick up the RPG, a Combine gunship flies above the base and starts its attack. Through this fight, Half-Life 2 doesn't only introduce a new weapon and new enemy type, but a weapon and enemy type that complement one another. The gunship is quick enough to avoid and even shoot down your rockets, and it strafes fast enough that it can easily flank and flush you out of cover. As you run in and out of buildings and pick your time to fire and steer the rockets, combat becomes a dynamic game of hide and seek, and it's really cool to watch the AI react to your rockets. With the gunship destroyed, the soundtrack turns somber, and the survivors sit hunched and exhausted.
Get going, Dr. Freeman. We know Eli Vance is depending on you.
Take the time to look around NLO and you'll notice the rebels' stark living conditions. In one room, a couple of couches gathered around a fireplace provide a small comfort. It's a nice bit of storytelling and a really human moment, showing the desperation and resolve of the resistance. After continuing on, the next stop is Northern Petrol, where Valve attempts to inject some levity through crane physics. Up on the docks, an upturned drawbridge blocks your advance, and you'll need to take control of a very wobbly crane to knock it down. It'll likely take you a minute or two, or 20 years to get a hold of exactly how the crane controls. And while you're figuring it out, Combine soldiers come to the defense of their drawbridge. Luckily, their weapons are useless against what I imagine is the world's only bulletproof crane. Once you've knocked down the bridge, knocked over some Combine, and had your fun tossing these poor shipping containers around, we return to the highway by way of a ramp through a window. Why exactly there is a ramp leading to a giant window is anyone's guess, but it sure is fun. As you make your way down the highway, another gunship attacks you, and there's a neat moment where, if you time it correctly, you'll hit the jump as the gunship passes underneath. The buggy's cannon doesn't do much to the gunship, and if you try and escape, a mass of busted cars blocks your way. The fight here is trickier than the first one. The cars provide inconsistent cover, and the gunship's accuracy means it'll likely get a few shots on you through windows and doors. Perhaps this time, as you kill the gunship, it occurs to you how bestial the cries and moans it makes are. Maybe it crash lands in the middle of the road, joining the mass wreck that's already there, and you get an up-close inspection. It's a strange mix of seemingly organic and inorganic material. It has the eyes of a fruit fly and the fins of a whale, but also rocket boosters and a propeller built into its body. On its back is some kind of symbol, or maybe a branding. You aren't sure how much control this creature has over its actions, or how it looks without metal and weapons fused to its body. Whatever the case, it's an unsettling reminder of the ugliness of Combine oppression. Further up the highway, we get jumped by roller mines, another new enemy type, though these guys are less lethal and existentially terrifying than the other enemies we've already fought. They'll hop at you and do some damage, and if enough stick themselves to the buggy, they'll slow it down. But their introduction here sets us up for another surprise later on. For now, our drive is cut short by a poorly laid Combine ambush. This house, like the one before, can be approached in a few different ways. There is a front and back door, and you can run into the house and clear it guns blazing, or sit outside and chuck grenades through the windows. Go upstairs, and you'll find that you've walked into a Combine trap. Soldiers attack from outside the house, the tables suddenly reversed, and behind you, from the stairs, a shotgun trooper sneaks up and takes a bite away from your health. This fight, for a reason I'm not totally sure of, I've always found somewhat creepy. What was once a serene and secluded seaside home is not immune to Combine control. Outside, a tire swing hangs from a tree in an old yard, which you can see from the house's kitchen. It's not the first swing in the level, but this one feels more real. You can kind of imagine yourself as a parent cooking food and looking out at your child through the window. Around the corner, another makeshift roadblock makes for a brief stop, and you may notice a tree and ammo box calling your attention from the side of the road. On the hill, Half-Life 2 introduces its crossbow, hopefully of better use to you than it was to its previous owner. As soon as you pick it up, a few courteous Combine Combine troops appear to help you better learn the bow's ballistics. Like with the RPG, if you pick up the crossbow here, we get a new weapon and a context that makes it immediately useful and fun. Whether you miss or decide to skip the hill, you'll have to approach the gas station on foot as a shield wall blocks the road. A small squad of Combine troops are waiting to meet you, and like the other shootouts, this one can go a multitude of ways. Around the gas station is a lot of miscellaneous cover, as well as explosive barrels that the gravity gun is begging to toss. Hit the gas pumps and you'll be treated to a nice display of fireworks and physics. Environmental clues tell you a Combine APC is powering the wall. It's an easy fix to disable and maybe a bit cathartic to shove some Combine tech into the ocean. Like the house before it, the gas station is detailed enough that it makes you consider life before the Combine. It has an old street-side petrol billboard, vacant gas pumps, and even a counter for road trip snacks. Across the street, behind the gas station's storage tanks, is a secret Lambda cache, but one with a pretty depressing mini-story. Hopping back in the buggy, our next stop is the end of the line. The highway becomes a dirt road leading to a small group of buildings. On cue, more Combine try, fruitlessly, to stop you, likely easy targets for the buggy's cannon. As the fight quiets down, you'll probably hear the unmistakable sound of a poison zombie. Sitting at the cliff's edge, it's still creepy as hell, but doesn't present an immediate threat. And if you're like me, you make quick work of it with the RPG. Turning our attention to the house, something sure does seem suspicious about it. The windows are barred, the stairs are broken, and someone must have not known how to properly use a meat grinder. The second floor appears quiet and empty, that is until you turn around. A poison zombie ambushes you without any warning from its distinct breathing. Valve decides to, again, be a little cheeky here and break the game's own rules, and the result is a scene that, even though I know it's coming, I still dread to this day. That's not to say I don't love the scene, because I do. Like many of Highway 17's points of interest, entering the house is entirely optional, and with a sprinkle of tension and subversion, this simple bit of gameplay, lasting no longer than a few minutes, is an effective scare and one of my favorite parts of the entire game. With the highway gone, we'll need to use the nearby railway bridge to progress. This time though, there's a better defended shield wall, and the only way to disable it is to go underneath the bridge. Walking out onto the catwalk, that lazy ocean wind suddenly becomes gusty, and a short sting from the soundtrack sets the mood. As you begin crossing, a train travels above you, shaking and rumbling the screen. Here, we get a new pace and a break from the road trip. It's platforming, a little combat, and even the occasional surprise head crab. About halfway across, you might notice a box of rockets that you don't currently need and let out an anxious sigh. Sure enough, after we fight our way to the shield wall controls, a third gunship appears. The control room does have enough cover to fight back, but there isn't enough ammo to destroy the gunship. If you stick to the intended path and follow it back to that ammo box, things aren't too bad. Whatever happens, this marks 3 encounters with a new enemy type, fought with a new weapon, and each time in a different context: a base, a car wreck, and across broken catwalks. It's a slightly different challenge each time, keeping gameplay fresh and keeping you on your toes. Speaking of keeping you on your toes, once we get back on the tracks, Valve isn't quite content on allowing you to leave just yet, so they throw an entire train at you. Almost 20 years later, and for whatever reason, I still can't get past this part without dying at least once. It's probably psychological. Or maybe the fact that I always try to beat it to the runoff instead of just throwing the buggy in reverse. Who knows? With that, Highway 17 officially comes to a close, but our time with the buggy isn't over, as the runoff leads us back to the road and Highway 17 merges with Sandtraps, Half-Life 2's next chapter. The beginning of Sandtraps capitalizes on a fear you may have felt going through all those tunnels earlier. The tunnels were dark and featureless, and maybe you were expecting something inside, some kind of twist. To this point though, the tunnels held only loading screens. Sandtraps begins inside a tunnel, but this time you see an upturned car and the silhouette of a zombie. Round the corner, and it's like you're back in Ravenholm. Luckily, only a handful of zombies and a couple of fast zombies attack you. And if you whip out your gravity gun, all these battered cars laying around make for decent and fun weapons. In an optional and very creepy side room, 2 bodies lay dead with a cabinet braced against the door. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to keep them safe. 2 more victims of a world ravaged by interdimensional invaders and war. Alas, we must press on. The light at the end of the tunnel leads us back to a seaside highway. Not far down the road, another house calls our attention. Lightly guarded by a few troops, you'll probably see the smoke from a burn pit as you drive in. As if the burn pit wasn't a strong enough suggestion of what's inside the house, this house's door is locked and its windows are boarded. Fortunately, someone or something blew a giant hole in the wall, and as you enter, you may notice it has a similar layout to the building with the surprise poison zombie encounter from earlier. There's even a bloodstain in the kitchen. This time, though, you're ready. There's nothing on the second floor, and on the third floor, it's those goddamn roller mines. And one also attacks you on the second floor and on the first floor. Valve sets you up for a scare and instead has you walk into a wry practical joke. Maybe the roller mines get a small jump out of you, so you reward Valve with a sarcastic Picard clap and head back outside. Beyond the house, 2 gravestones sit beside a tree and overlook the ocean. Almost directly in front of them is an abandoned boat. You've seen plenty of those, but the gravesite makes this boat seem more distinct. Who were these people? Did they die before the invasion? Did they live here? It's presumably a mystery without an actual answer, but it's a site I always stop to take in anyway. Traveling on, the Combine have 2 checkpoints where they attempt to stop you. One you can drive through or take time to clear out, the other a gate, but not of Combine design. After a short firefight, you'll have to find a couple batteries to power the gate and open it. One battery is sitting right next to the power, but the third is hidden. There are a few places where you can find a third battery. One is hidden under this upturned bathtub, another you'll have to yank out from an old car, and for the hawk-eyed among us, one is perched underneath the windmill. It's not the most complex puzzle, but it does provide a calm before the storm, a final chance to catch your breath. Through the gate and up the highway is Lighthouse Point, our final destination. The rebels say they expect a Combine attack and that they're looking for the buggy, so you have to park it in the garage for some reason. Combine soldiers attack in waves, dropped off in different directions. The dropship guns don't aim as widely as the gunships, but they're just as deadly up front. The fight keeps you on the move. You have to reposition and find different angles to attack each wave that also isn't in the firing arc of the dropship. Once you've taken care of the troops, one more gunship pays you a visit. Ammunition for the RPG is in the lighthouse, and our last duel with a gunship takes place from atop the lighthouse. A great way to end a great level. A high point following a few hours of gameplay full of high points. As you escape down the cliff edge toward Nova Prospect and the rest of Sandtraps, your companion and trusty steed is confiscated, whisked away by the Combine right in front of your eyes. It's sad, but there's also something funny about a trans-dimensional alien flying off with a rusted makeshift dune buggy as though it's the most dangerous weapon on Earth. Highway 17 and the beginning of Sandtraps seem so simple, at least conceptually. It's a sequence you can explore at your own pace, with small, self-contained moments that tell their own stories and enrich Half-Life 2's narrative as a whole. And of course, all of that is elevated with the eerie ambience of an abandoned seaside highway. New weapons are introduced in creative ways, and while most of the level is optional, curiosity and exploration are rewarded with surprise encounters and interesting environmental details. There's tension, horror, action, and even some humor. This 2-hour or so stretch of Half-Life 2, in my mind, is one example of Valve at the absolute height of its artistic powers.